Jack was 26, and he hated two things: cold coffee and the fact that his vintage auto restoration shop had gone belly up a week ago. He sat in a booth at Joe's Diner, counting his last few dollars, when he heard a crash outside the window. In the parking lot, a girl in coveralls was fighting with the back doors of an old Ford Econoline van. The door was jammed. She shoved it with her shoulder, swore loudly, and shoved it again. Jack sighed, downed the rest of his cold coffee, and walked outside. "If you shove it one more time, you're going to shatter the glass," he said, walking up. The girl spun around. She had green eyes, a messy bun, and a streak of grease on her cheek. "Thanks for the tip, Einstein, but the lock is jammed." "It's not the lock. On these '98 models, the hinges sag. You don't shove, you have to lift." Jack crouched down, wedged his knee under the bumper, gave the door a sharp upward jolt, and clicked the handle. The door swung shut smoothly. The girl looked at the door, then at Jack. "Are you a wizard or a car thief?" "Ex-mechanic." "Jack." He extended a hand. "Riley." She shook it. Her grip was strong. "Listen, ex-mechanic, are you busy right now? Because my dad just fired his assistant, and if we don't load 10 oak tabletops by noon, my back is going to snap." The workshop, Miller and Daughter Woodworks, smelled of sawdust, glue, and stress. Frank Miller, Riley's dad, was a mountain of a man with gray whiskers and a stare that could drive nails. He looked Jack over like a suspicious car part. "A mechanic?" Frank asked, wiping his hands on a rag. "Son, wood isn't metal. You can't just weld it if you screw up. It's living tissue. Do you even know the difference between a chisel and a screwdriver?" "I know I can open a beer with both of them if I really have to," Jack replied with a stone face. Riley snorted, hiding a smile behind her hand. Frank frowned, but a flicker of interest crossed his eyes. "You've got a trial run until tonight. I need that mountain of table legs sanded, by hand, no power sanders. If I see a single scratch, you're out." Jack nodded. Woodwork was different from metalwork, but the principle was the same: patience. He turned on the radio, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. He was used to buffing Mustang fenders to a mirror finish. Wood was softer, more forgiving. At 6 p.m., Frank picked up a table leg, running a calloused thumb over it, hunting for imperfections. There were none. "Not bad," he grunted. "Come back tomorrow, but don't think you're on the team yet." 2 weeks passed. Jack became indispensable. He didn't just haul lumber. He fixed an old table saw that hadn't run in years and tuned up the ventilation system. But the real chemistry wasn't with the machinery, it was with Riley. One night, they stayed late to finish a rush order. They sat on a workbench, legs dangling, eating pepperoni pizza. "So why auto repair?" Riley asked, taking a bite. "I like things you can fix," Jack shrugged. "The world is too chaotic, but under a hood, everything is logical. There's a problem, there's a solution. What about you? Why are you here? I saw the marketing degree in the office." "My dad," she sighed. "He has arthritis, though he'll never admit it. The business is sinking, Jack. We make incredible furniture, but we're too slow. If we don't deliver the order for the Skyline Hotel next week, the bank takes the building." Jack looked at her. In the dim light of the shop, she looked tired, but incredibly beautiful. "We'll deliver it," he said firmly. "It's a 15-foot black walnut conference table, Jack. It needs to be varnished until it looks like glass. Dad doesn't have the steady hand for that kind of finish anymore, and I'm a manager, not a finisher." "Hey," Jack nudged her elbow. "You forgot something. You hired a guy who specializes in making rusted heaps look like candy." She looked into his eyes. The pause lasted a little longer than it usually does between coworkers. "If you save this table, I'll name a hammer after you. I prefer a drill. It's louder." 2 days before the deadline, disaster struck. Frank, trying to move a heavy slab, threw his back out. An ambulance took him to the hospital. But that wasn't the worst part. In the chaos, someone knocked a can of solvent onto the prepared table surface. The stain was spreading like an oil slick in the ocean. Riley stood over the table, tears welling in her eyes. "It's over, Jack. We don't have time to strip this down and apply new varnish. Standard varnish needs 48 hours to cure. We have 12. She sat on the floor and buried her face in her hands. Jack walked around the table. He ran a hand over the ruined wood. His mechanic's brain kicked into high gear. "Riley, get up. Jack, don't get up." He offered her a hand and pulled her to her feet. "We're not using wood varnish." "What? Are you crazy? That's $10,000 worth of walnut." "We're going to use automotive clear coat, ceramic, the stuff they put on high-end sports cars. It cures under UV light in an hour, it's harder than stone, and it gives a depth that regular varnish can never touch." "Dad will kill us." "Dad is in the hospital, and we either do this or we lose the shop. Do you trust me?" She looked at him, at his confident smile, at the hands that knew exactly what they were doing. "If we ruin this table, I'll kill you before Dad gets the chance." "Deal." "We're going to my old garage. I still have supplies there." That night was insane. Jack turned the woodshop into a paint booth. He strapped on a respirator and handed one to Riley. "Just hold the light and don't breathe when I tell you to," he commanded. He moved around the table like a dancer. Psh, psh, layer after layer. The automotive spray gun worked perfectly. Riley watched, mesmerized. It wasn't just work, it was art. Jack applied the coat, buffed, and sprayed again. At 7 a.m., they pulled off their masks. The table stood in the center of the shop. It didn't just shine. It looked like it was made of liquid dark glass. The depth of the walnut grain was unbelievable. Jack, covered in sweat and dust, pulled off his mask. "Well?" Riley walked up to the table, afraid to breathe on it. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." She turned to Jack. The adrenaline of the night, the exhaustion, and the relief mixed into a single cocktail. She threw her arms around his neck. "You're a genius! You're a mad genius!" Jack grabbed her by the waist, lifting her off the ground. "I'm just a mechanic, remember?" At that moment, the door opened. Frank, leaning on a crutch, hobbled into the shop. He had broken out of the hospital. He saw Jack holding his daughter. Then he saw the table. Frank froze. He limped over to the table, ignoring the couple. He ran a finger along the surface. "This isn't polyurethane," he said quietly. "No, sir," Jack answered, setting Riley down. "It's PPG clear coat, 3 layers, scratch-resistant, moisture-resistant, 20-year warranty." Frank was silent for a long minute. Then he turned to Jack. "You used car paint on my timber?" "Yes, sir." Frank smiled slowly beneath his mustache. "It looks better than anything I've turned out in 40 years. 6 months later, the sign out front was changed. It now read, "Miller, Daughter, and Jack's Custom Works." Jack stood by the entrance, checking invoices. Riley came up behind him, wrapped her arms around him, and set a hot coffee on the workbench. "You know," she said, "that lock on the van is jammed again." Jack smiled, turning to face her. "Then you're lucky you're dating the guy who knows exactly where to kick it." "I'm just lucky," she whispered, right before she kissed him.